In this video, I'm going to show you the visa forms you need to submit for your wife and child if you're on the Innovator visa route or the Innovator Founder visa route. Now, in this particular factual scenario, for the sake of the example, I'm using the example of a wife, Jane Smith, just some fictional details. Of course, this could be your husband, but for the sake of the example, I'm using Jane Smith as being your wife and Ben Smith as your child. Now, remember, when you're applying for indefinite leave to remain, they need to apply before their visas expire. And the application that they'll be making, if you're at the 3-year point, is for an extension. So they will be applying for extensions to get them to the 5-year point at which they can apply for indefinite leave to remain. So you can apply for indefinite leave to remain at year 3. They need 5 years though. Therefore, they're going to be applying for an extension. Now, when they apply for an extension, you may or may not have had the decision on your indefinite leave to remain application as an innovator or innovator founder. Some of my clients recently have got their substantive decision quickly, like within a week, but others have waited longer because for most people, there's a quasi-interview process whereby they ask you questions by email and you've got to respond, and that takes a long time. So you can't wait to make the applications on behalf of your wife and child while you're going through that, because their visas will simply expire and they'll become overstayers. So they've got to make their applications, and their applications will not be determined until you get a decision on your application. So you could hedge the risk, right? Because if you're refused ILR as the main applicant and you're refused an extension, because remember, when you apply for ILR, they've also got to consider you for an extension if they disagree that you've met the success criteria. But if you were to be refused on both, then you would lose the application fees on your wife's application in this scenario and your child's application. Those wouldn't be refundable and therefore they'll be wasted. Now, from that point of view, it's worth getting a quick decision. So when you apply for them, you'll know that their applications will go through and that the money will not be wasted. With a refusal, you still get a refund on their NHS surcharge fees, because remember, those have got to be covered. But you wouldn't be refunded the substantive application fee. Now, of course, that's a worst case scenario, right? You want to, if you're doing this, then you want to make a success of it. And I've got through more than 20 applications now for main applicants, and then many, many more if you count their family members. And I want to point out some tips on the application forms that need to be completed. So I've got here, as I say, on the right-hand side, Jane Smith, your wife, and here Ben Smith, your child, in this fictional scenario. So in terms of the form setup, on the first page here, this is just placeholder details. It asks for the reference numbers for you, and it asks for the BRP number. It's best, though, to select the unique application number and get the unique application number from your form. Now, if you haven't submitted to your form, then you can still get it if you go to your application form and click here and then download PDF, then you'll get your unique application number, and then you can then put it into your wife's form here. And that will link the applications, and the same applies for your child's application here. So I'll click on continue, and it does ask here, just so this doesn't confuse you, this is true of the kid's application here and your wife's application here. Does your endorsement, John Smith being you, does your endorsement confirm that you've been awarded sufficient funds to cover your maintenance? Now, I know why it asks this, but it's sort of a relic from previous schemes. So the answer to this will almost always be no, in that I don't think any of the endorsing bodies will state this in the settlement endorsement letter. They're not going to state that, or in the original endorsement letter. So the answer here will almost always be no, but that is confusing. A lot of people get confused by that, understandably. In terms of the main application, dependent partner, edit responses, you can see here that all the bio data is in travel history. Now, I suppose on travel history, there is an important point here, which is that your wife still needs to secure continuity of residence in order for her to qualify for indefinite leave to remain. And let me just show you an important point in the rules here. This says that when your child is coming to apply for indefinite leave to remain at year 5, the rule is the applicant's other parent, so in other words, your wife in this scenario, must be being granted settlement at the same time or be settled or a British citizen, unless you've got sole responsibility for your child or there's serious compelling reasons, etc. So in order for your kid to get settlement, your wife has got to do so. And for her to get settlement, she needs continuity of leave, continuity of residence. And so that means that she's going to need to be in the UK for more than 6 months each year, for more than half of the year, and not breach the 180-day rule. So bear that in mind. So although to get the extension, she does not need to show continuity of residence. In due course, she is going to need to show that to get ILR. So at this stage, she doesn't need to show it, but she's going to have to declare her travel history. So make sure you've got your ducks in a row, because if this travel history is inconsistent with the one that she submits when she applies for ILR, then that could cause issues. So the simple way to deal with that is just to maintain a travel schedule. And remember that the day that you enter the UK, they hear that she enters the UK, and the dates that she leaves the UK are not counted in the calculation. And then there's the conduct points. And if we click continue and continue, documents, it just asks for the passport. Continue, have that, and it'll ask you to register the email. There will be a consent form that needs to be submitted though. So I would submit that. In practice, although the form only asks for the passport, they do often ask for proof that you've been living together in the UK. And so if you can maintain joint utility bills, or if you're paying council tax, both be listed on the council tax, then that would be an advantage at this stage. So that very briefly is the wife's form. As for your child's form, the same point applies about this question here. The answer will be no. Again, you need to enter your UAN, unique application number, the application itself, dependent child. Just put some placeholder details in here. Continue, mandatory documents, passport, birth certificate, proof of relationship status, unless provided with a previous application. I do usually resubmit that. Save and continue. And it's worth bearing in mind here that your wife will need to be applying at the same time, unless there's special circumstances, as the child. So to fulfill the requirements of the rules, both parents will normally need to be applying at the same time as the child. And again, the child's application sits therefore sort of third in line, if you like. Your application will be granted your wife's, and then your child's application. So there'd also need to be a data consent form with this, and this application would normally be submitted on behalf of the child, depending on how old they are. There's special considerations regarding turning 18 and that sort of thing, which I'll cover separately. And I've also covered separately your application form as main applicant for indefinite leave to remain. So I hope that's helpful in just showing you an overview of the forms that need to be submitted and some key points there to bear in mind. Good luck with your application. And if you do want assistance, I'd be happy to help you. I have a consultation service. You can get me on the link below. Bye for now.